This session will discuss the installation of the motor subassembly into the vehicle and some cautionary things you need to do. One thing that's important is to have some wood blocks in the vehicle again so the subassembly doesn't move around, and have two people lift it. The motor is heavy and you don't want to try to lift it up by yourself. And you can see we've put the motor in the position it's going to be installed in the vehicle. We don't want to try to move it around once it's in the vehicle. Here we have our hardware laid out, all ready to go, and right next to the vehicle, so we can quickly install the brackets that mount the subassembly to the swing arm frame. And another safety feature is we use a floor jack to help support the motor subassembly in the space behind the floor of the Chassis Lab vehicle. So the first step in getting it to the frame of the vehicle is to put it into position with its brackets on the frame of the swing arm. We're not going to worry anything at all about alignment at this point, but you can see the motor resting on the jack stand and the brackets are lined up on the swing arm frame. And then we'll begin to start to attach the brackets, the back end of the brackets. So we're going to start with the top brackets and get them started to hold the swing arm and the motor subassembly together, and then we'll align and attach the bottom brackets. So attach the top brackets first, then the lower brackets. And you can see we haven't tightened anything down firmly. The motor's still going to move laterally on the swing arm. We need to do that to make adjustments. So now we'll attach our bottom brackets. And as you can see, we're inserting the bolts from the rear of the subassembly towards the front of the vehicle, and then putting the nuts on the front side. So with all the brackets attached but not firmly tightened down, we're going to align the drive sprocket from the motor and the drive sprocket on the wheel. And we're going to do this with a straight edge that reaches both sprockets. And our goal here is to make certain that there is no space between any of the edges of the straight edge and the surface of the sprocket. And here you can see we've got a nice good connection. This means we have a good alignment between both of the sprockets, front and back. Let's just take a look at it if we did not have a good alignment, how it would look. We'd start to see space on our straight edge between the straight edge and the face of the sprocket. And this is what we don't want to happen. So with our sprockets aligned, we can put the chain on. We're going to start with the motor sprocket. Put the chain on the motor sprocket and then on the drive wheel sprocket, and make sure the chain routes itself over the tensioner. That's the small sprocket in the center. And with our chain alignment complete, we want to tighten the brackets that hold the subassembly to the swing arm. We do this so that we can adjust the tension on our chain. That's the next step in our sequence. So we have our chain lined up correctly. We have our subassembly attached to the swing arm. Now we need to adjust the tension of the chain. And we do this with the tensioner bolt that's near the motor. It actually pushes the motor forward away from the drive sprocket and puts tension into the chain. If you've happened to tighten the bolts from the motor to the subassembly a little bit too tightly, you may need to loosen them a little bit at this point. We asked you to keep them a little bit tighter as you move the subassembly around so the motor wouldn't move around. You might want to loosen those up just a little bit here. And then we'll continue to adjust our tension on the chain. The chain tension bolt has a lockdown nut. You want to make sure that's loose enough so that you have travel for that bolt to move the motor away from the rear wheel and put some tension into the chain. And the tension we're looking for in the chain is such that it won't move more than 1/2 of an inch up or down. So that's a total of 1 inch total, but it won't move more than 1/2 of an inch up or down away from the horizontal. And you can use your straight edge for this to just measure its travel, and 1/2 inch is your goal. So here we can see our chain within that 1/2 inch tolerance of travel up or down. And once this is accomplished, we can tighten up our lock nut on the adjusting bolt so that that won't move anymore. And then with everything aligned and distanced properly, we want to tighten up the bolt pattern on the motor to the subassembly. So we're going to tighten the motor to the subassembly by alternating the bolts. Tighten each one alternately around until you get them all tight. So after the chain's on, we can put the chain guard in place. There are two mounting bolts for the chain guard. One is back by the rear wheel sprocket on the top, and that'll go down from the top down into the chain guard. The other mounting bolt towards the front portion of the chain guard mounts horizontally through the chain guard from the inner part of the vehicle towards the outside. So we're going to put the bolt in place first, and then we'll set our chain guard into position over the chain and on the vehicle. So we'll attach that front bolt first. The horizontal bolt will be the first connection for the chain guard. After we get it into position, it goes through the hole on the side, and then the back part will go through the support frame towards the back sprocket. So we can just set it into place on the positions over the chain. It's not too hard to do. Just line it up. You want to make sure the front part of the chain guard goes underneath the bolts on the motor subassembly, and it fits, slides right in there. And then you can put the front connection on. We had the bolt installed. Now we're just going to put the nut on the outside with its washer and get that started. And then we'll do our rear connection. Bolt goes downward through the bracket, and the mounting point on the swing arm and the washer and nut will attach from underneath. And with the installation of the chain guard, we've completed the installation sequence for the motor subassembly to the swing arm, and our motor should be ready to go and drive the vehicle. And we'll move on to our next part of the assembly sequence.